Hey guys, Doug B here. Last week, Rhett Shull put out a video on his channel called The Axe FX3 Has One Major Problem, a non-metal player's review. Now, if you haven't seen this video, I encourage you to give it a shot. You might have a different perspective on this than I do, so please leave me a comment. Tell me your feelings on this. Now, first let me say that I think the world of Rhett Shull and his playing and everything. Now, I was introduced to him through Rick Beato's channel over a year ago, and I really like his contributions. I love his playing style. I love the stuff he says. Usually, I agree with just about everything he says on his channel, but this one had me like going, huh? I mean, this one even had my wife going, what is he talking about? Now, he starts off by saying that he's had an Axe FX3 on loan from Fractal for the last 2.5 years. He said that his initial plan was to research it for a couple of weeks and then do a review on it. Then he realized that it was way more deep and way more complex than he'd be able to research in like a couple of weeks. You know, on that part, I agree with him. I've had mine for just a little over 2 years. Man, it is taking me all this time just to get as far as I am, and I realize I still have an awful lot to learn. Now, I should say that I am not going to go over every single thing that Rhett says or does. I'm just going to hit on the highlights. So anyway, the next thing he does is he demos a song that now I'm assuming he used the Axe FX3 for. Sounds fantastic. He says the FX3 is the only unit amongst the major players that has usable stock presets right out of the box. Then he demos a preset that he didn't exactly create it. It was based on a stock preset, but then he made some changes to it. Yeah, that's part of a preset pack that he's selling for the Axe FX3, the FM3, and the FM9. I'll leave a link for his website in the description. Now, he also praises the stock cab IRs, he praises the effects, he praises the amps. So it's obvious that he really does like the Axe FX3, thinks it's a great unit, and sounds killer right out of the box. But then he goes into what he says is the biggest obstacle of the Axe FX3, the front panel user interface. He says that it is all but impossible to use the front panel on the Axe FX3 to create presets, and that you absolutely have to use Axe Edit. Now, I think you guys know how I feel about Axe Edit. It's great. I love it because it makes creating and editing a breeze, but that does not make the front panel impossible to use. Now, if you're a casual user and you're only going to be using that front panel on a sporadic basis, then I can see where you might have some trouble. You really do need to take the time and energy to devote into learning that front panel, but it's not that hard. I mean, one of my very first videos on this channel was how to make your first preset using the front panel in less than 5 minutes. And it was a very usable preset too. It's just like so many other pieces of high-tech gear. You have to take the time and energy to devote to learning what you're working with. But again, it is far from impossible. Then he says that's the main reason why the Axe FX3 stays home in the studio and doesn't come to gigs with him, because of how hard it is to create and edit presets from the front panel. Both my wife and I said at the same time, who creates presets at a gig or at a session? And I got the exact same comment from another YouTube creator who was talking to me about this video. Next, he gives an example of how hard it is to change presets from the front panel. Now, sure, it would be nice if once you found the preset you want, if you could just press the value knob and it would bring you there. But come on, all you have to do is press enter and home. Instead of pressing one button, the one that you want, you have to press 2 other buttons. Dude, that is not a big deal. Come on, Rhett. It's just not. He then shows an example of how hard it is to edit on the grid. And I mean, you can literally see he is visibly frustrated with it. But again, who's going to do that at a gig or a session? One of the things that I've noticed about Rhett from watching his videos over the past year is he's quite methodical, getting everything planned out before a gig or a session so that everything runs as efficiently and smoothly as possible. But he just seems lost when it comes to the Axe FX3's front panel. Okay, stop using the front panel for editing. That's what Axe Edit is for. Anyway, he pulls up the cab block on the front panel, and it looks pretty close to what it looks like in Axe Edit. And then he says, tell me how any of this is helpful. It looks like I'm reading telemetry data from the space shuttle. Okay, now maybe it's because I am married to a NASA rocket scientist, but I just look at his front panel just like, yeah, okay, I can understand that. You don't have to use all of that data, but it's still not confusing. Just a quick glance at his screen tells me that he's using cab number 116 from the Legacy Bank, the 1x12 Scumtone 25 watt mix in cab 1. He's also using cab 69 from the Legacy Bank, the 4x12 pre-roller Greenback C414 in cab 2. He's using default values for both, and they're both pan mono. Was that really that hard? He goes on to say how hard it is to change things in the cab block, and what a nightmare that would be if he had to do it at a gig or at a session. And again, he just says how unusable the front panel is. I mean, to me, it just feels like he's not even trying to find a solution. He just wants to gripe about the problem. I seem to recall an old saying that says, it is better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. So let's look at his cab block dilemma. He says that you can't quickly change from one cab to another. How many cabs are you bringing to a gig or a session? 2? 3 at the most? Take a look at the cab block. You have 4 channels, and each channel has 4 slots. You can load up your favorite 16 cabs in the cab block, save it in the block guide, and you can recall those 16 cabs for any preset you're building, so you don't have to go searching for presets. You've got your 16 right there. And if somehow, if 16 is still too limiting, remember on the Axe FX3, you can use 2 cab blocks per preset. So you can double that number. You can have 32 of your favorite cabinets available at your fingertips anytime. Look for the solution. It's right there. See? Easy peasy. He says that the other major players like the Kemper, the Helix, and the Quad Cortex all have much better user interfaces, but he doesn't show any of them, so I really don't know if what he's saying is correct or not. I mean, I've never tried them, so I really literally have no idea about any other unit. Is he correct? Let me know. Drop me a comment if they really are easier to use. But I mean, how easy, for instance, is it to go on a Kemper or a Helix and switch from one cab to another? Yeah, leave me a comment if you have knowledge about this. I'm really curious about that. And again, he says that's why he can't use it at a gig or a session, because of the user interface, the front panel. For a guy who does a lot of pre-planning, that thought process really has me confused. First off, I don't see Rhett as one of these guys that's going to be using a ton of presets on a gig or at a session. He's going to have his favorite 8, maybe 12 at the most. Now you can sit down before the gig or before the session, use Axe Edit and move those 12 presets all together so you can just go from one to another real easily. On top of that, I really feel like a guy like Rhett would get one of the FC controllers, probably the FC6, because it can do the most in the smallest amount of space. He'd have all the control that he needs right at his feet. And if he still feels like he wants to turn some knobs, you can program global functions on the 5 front panel knobs, you know, like volume, bass, treble, gain, etc. So you can program those to have double functions, so you'd have 10 knobs on the front. If 10 wasn't enough, you can also program 10 more on a per preset setting. So on a particular preset, you could have up to 20 functions using those 5 knobs. You know, he says that the Kemper is laid out just like an amp. With the Axe FX3, you can make that amp layout the way that you want it. Isn't that better? Just take the time to pre-plan, and all your personal settings and layouts will be right there available for you every time you turn the unit on. Another one of the things he talks about is the blinding amount of detail that is available for you in your presets. And then he goes to demonstrate in one of his presets a whole bunch of the various minutiae that you can change. The thing about it is, you do not have to deep dive into the AXE-FX3 if you don't want to. You don't have to understand how the hundreds of available parameters work in order to make a good preset. I mean, I've shown how you can build a basic preset using the front panel in under 5 minutes, and I've shown how you can build the same preset in Axe Edit in under 1 minute. And again, like I said, it's a usable preset. You do not have to do that deep dive. You can dive as deep as you want to, but you can also wade in the shallow end if you'd like. It all depends on what you want to get out of it. He even says that when he first got the AXE-FX3, that in order to get a good tone, you had to use all of those parameters. Fractal put all those parameters in there to use, so you should use them, right? Well, yes and no. If you know what you're doing, if you understand those parameters, go for it. Hey, if you feel like just messing around and seeing what happens, try that too. But again, you don't have to. Stay with the stuff that you know. You don't have to mess with tube hardness or triode 1 frequency or plate bias excursion. I might be making some of these names up. You'll have to check for yourself. But you don't have to mess with that stuff. That stuff will just hurt your head. And apparently he came to that realization himself too. Just tweak the stuff that you know. You'll still get great results. Now after all that, he does say that the AXE-FX3 is the best out of all the major players, but that the other ones have better user interfaces. He even mentions the great touchscreen on the Quad Cortex. Now again, I really don't know much about the Quad Cortex. I've seen it a little bit here and there. Looks kind of interesting, not really my thing. But I just cannot imagine having that on, having that set up on the stage and having some drunk be able to come over and mess with your settings just by pressing the screen. Nor do I want to have to bend down and mess with a touchscreen on the floor at a gig. No, thank you. But back to the AXE-FX3. If you still absolutely have to have access to Axe Edit during a gig or a session and you don't want to bring a laptop, bring an iPad and run FracPad on it. See? Another simple solution for you. So there you have it, guys. In the end, Rhett says that the FX3 is the best out of all the units, is the most professional unit, has the best sound, but it is the most expensive. I can't disagree with any of that, but I still think his issues with the front panel user interface could be overcome with some pre-planning. I'll leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Next Wednesday, I'll be reviewing Rhett's AXE-FX3 preset pack for Preset of the Week. Now you don't want to miss that, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. All right, guys, see you on Wednesday.